Hello and a very warm welcome to the TT circuit at Assen in the Netherlands for our coverage of this weekend's two TCR Europe races, rounds 9 and 10 of the 2018 series. Hello everyone, this is Mark James in the commentary box welcoming you back to the Netherlands. We were here, remember, at Zandvoort for rounds 3 and 4 of the series back in May, and we're now back for the Gamma Racing Day, which is this big event here at Circuit Assen, with all sorts of motorsport activities during the weekend. For us, though, the highlights, the two TCR Europe races, that's the points position, with Mikel Azcona and Dusan Borkovic separated by just a single point. And then after qualifying this morning, Danny Nage has closed to within 23 points of Azcona. Josh Files picks up 5 points for pole position, but I'll explain that situation very shortly. It is actually Jean-Carl Venet who will start race 1 from pole. He's currently 5th place in the Drivers' Championship. A couple of no-shows to tell you about here in Assen. 24 cars entered, 22 cars on the grid. Mark Jedlovsky, a no-show, as is one of our race winners from the previous races in Hungary, Francisco Mora in the Hyundai. A late decision not to come here to the Netherlands. The car is here, which suggests just how late the decision was, but no Francisco Mora. So Francisco, if you're watching, fingers crossed, we'll see you back at one of the 2 remaining events this year, at Monza in Italy next month, and then in Barcelona for the season finale in October. So as I say, it's 24 cars entered, 22 are actually here. And that is our entry list. And as I mentioned, Dusan Borkovic and Mikel Azcona, you see them there on the second page of the entry list, separated just by a single point. And Josh Files and Danny Nage, 4th and 3rd respectively, if that makes sense. But let me explain the position regarding pole. It was actually Josh Files who qualified on pole, but Josh and Dusan Borkovic both had 3 position grid penalties following incidents in Hungary last month, and so Josh dropped from 1st to 4th on the grid. And then further complicating matters, there were some penalties imposed this morning during qualifying for track limits. 3 of those penalties were subsequently rescinded, and so we'll run through the grid for you as the cars go round on their formation lap. But the front row of the grid, there you see Jean-Carl Venet at the right of your screen very briefly, on pole position with Maxime Potti alongside. Danny Nage then, one of the drivers who had penalties rescinded this morning. So Danny Nage starts from 3rd on the grid. He'll be behind Jean-Carl Venet. And Danny Nage, 2 pole position finishes at his home event at the Hungaroring last month, puts him very much back into contention in the Drivers' Championship. And alongside Danny Nage on the grid, the second row of the grid, there he is, Josh Files. All sorts of bad luck befalling Josh this year. Race winner so far, double TCR Germany champion in the past, TCR Middle East champion. And Josh Files saying before the weekend that really he has nothing to lose, and so really going for it this weekend. Clearly announced his competitiveness by going quickest in qualifying, and were it not for that 3-position grid penalty, Josh Files would be starting from pole. Chris Richard is the best placed of the target competition drivers. Chris Richard from Switzerland, one of Josh Files' regular competitors in TCR Germany, and Chris Richard will start alongside Files' teammate Attila Tashi on row 3 of the grid. As I mentioned, there we are. There's the confirmation of the grid. The front row then, Jean-Carl Venet and Maxime Potti, Audi and Volkswagen, Danny Nage and Josh Files on row 2, Chris Richard and Attila Tashi row 3, Mikel Azcona, Julien Brichet row 4, Stian Paulsen, Dusan Borkovic row 5, row 6 is Stefano Camini and Danny Cruz, Loris Ciancetti and Rhys Barr in the other target competition car. Then Jens Reno Muller and Peter Turting, we'll talk about a little more, I'm sure, as the race goes on. Then Igor Stefanovski and Francisco Abreu, Munkong Satyen Tirakul, turbo to his friends, alongside Giovanni Altoe in the DSG Audi. And in the back row of the grid, Maribo Coppens and Viktor Davidovski. So away they go then on the formation lap here at Assen. And the Gamma Racing weekend has seen all sorts of machinery take to the track here at Assen. The track, of course, better known for motorcycles. So we've already seen motorcycle sidecars, we've seen supercars. There's even a Formula One car, a genuine Renault Formula One car, doing demonstration runs. And just as at Zandvoort back in May, a tremendous crowd. The Dutch really do like their motorsport. And so a big crowd here, expected to be even bigger tomorrow. So this then the 9th round of TCR Europe 2018. And it, of course, also is a round of TCR Benelux. The Benelux series currently being led by Danny Cruz. Danny Cruz has a 15-point lead over Maxime Potty. So Potty's front row start will see him in good stead. Loris Cenchetti is currently 3rd, then Brichet, then Venet. So the Benelux series could get very interesting this weekend as well. There is Mikel Azcona, just a solitary point ahead of Dusan Borkovic, and Azcona saying before the weekend that he didn't think the Cupra would be particularly competitive here, and was thinking that it was going to be more a track that would suit the Hondas and the Hyundais. But indeed, Mikel Azcona, together with the other Cupras, Stephen Paulsen and Danny Cruz, doing reasonably well, better than they thought. Now, because of these changes I mentioned, because of the penalties being rescinded and the like, pole position for race 1 hasn't changed, in that it was always going to be Jean-Carl Venet thanks to that 3-position grid penalty for Josh Files. But race 2 tomorrow will see Stian Paulsen on pole. And Paulsen, his best result ever in a TCR race. 2nd place last time out at Hungary. There is Paulsen in the yellow Cupra. There is Dusan Borkovic. So things potentially about to tighten up this weekend. Both Borkovic and Azcona not scoring any points from qualifying this morning, even though both had their positions, their penalties rescinded. So then, 23 minutes plus 1 lap, the race distance, the now traditional race distance for this year's series, as Davidovski comes around to take his position on the grid. So we are moments away from this 9th round of TCR Europe. There is Davidovski in the Honda. Bo Coppens in one of the 2 DSG cars in the Cupra alongside, waiting for the green flag. There it is. So, watching for the lights on the gantry at the top of your screen. They go on. They go off. We're watching for Jean-Carl Venet. And indeed, Files already tries to weave around Maxime Potty. Files in clear road. Venet moves across to defend, and indeed Files has nosed ahead of Potty, and going around the outside is Danny Nage. The 2 Hondas of Files and Tashi running together, and as one of the Hondas is that Kamini running wide. No, indeed, there is Kamini tucked in behind the Hyundai of Chris Richard. But our pole sitter Jean-Carl Venet leading so far. Contact between Maxime Potty and somebody, and there is Cenchetti in the number 14 Honda. He will head back through the gravel, I suspect, as Nage now forced to defend from Files. Field safely through, but Files, though, still all over the back of Nage. Now, we weren't quite sure what the Audi's pace would be like this weekend, because Kamini missed free practice 2 because of damage caused, as there are now raindrops on our camera lens. And we've been half expecting rain for much of the day, certainly since late morning. Now, what's that going to mean? Oh, that was Stian Paulsen leaving his braking very late through the chicane. And Venet on lap 2. Venet then from Nage, Files, Tashi, Richard, Comini, Potty having dropped to 7th. Brichet in the Peugeot now 8th, Paulsen still 9th, and then Azcona is 10th. That's your top 10. Danny Cruz just outside the top 10 at the moment, with Borkovic having dropped to 12th. And unsurprisingly, because of that excursion through the gravel, Cencetti 22nd and last at the moment. Well, there is Peter Turting. I mentioned him when we were talking about the grid earlier on. Peter Turting making his TCR Europe debut and deputising, or replacing, I should say, Cedric Pirot in the Hyundai. Peter Turting has won at World Championship level. In fact, personally, it's great to see Peter. We worked together back probably about 12 or 13 years ago, and it was really good to catch up with him this morning. And Peter with that car for the remainder of the season. Tashi now threatening Richard. And in fact, Richard, has gone past Tashi. So, 4th place has changed hands. Chris Richard now 4th, ahead of Attila Tashi. There is Comini just tucked up behind them, with Maxime Potty in the sole Volkswagen behind Comini. Josh Files was telling me earlier on, because of the supercar race, they've actually put oil down at various points on the circuit, and so qualifying this morning, he said, was very slippery in places. They've also had a race, the previous race to this one, in fact, was the supercarts again. So, how heavy will this rain become, and will that combination of oil cause a few issues as the race goes on? We saw a moment ago Cruz, I think, getting his braking point wrong. Danny Cruz in 11th, being threatened by Dusan Borkovic. Let's just look back at the start. You can see Josh Files on the left, just weaving around Maxime Potty. Frustrated in his first attempt, then goes round the other way, tucks in behind Jean-Carl Venet. But it's Danny Nage on the right of your screen that tucks in 2nd place. Just getting ahead of Files. And indeed, it was Cencetti running wide. Contact also involving Danny, and I didn't see that the first time. Danny Cruz in the blue Cupra, getting tangled up in that as they go through turns 3, 4 and 5. That's the moment where Cencetti goes off into the gravel before resuming. So we're on lap 3 then. Jean-Carl Venet has a 6/10 of a second lead, and Turbo is in the pits. Mungkong Satintirikul from Thailand, you'll remember, was with us at Spa in Belgium for round 3. Electing to pick and choose his races in Europe, so I'm not sure if he's with us next time out at Monza. And indeed, the gap as they go into lap 4, Jean-Carl Venet's lead has stretched slightly, 7/10, nearly 8/10 now over Danny Nage. Josh Files, 6/10 behind Nage in 3rd. Then Richard, nearly 1.5 seconds behind Files in 4th. Then Tashi, then Comini, then Potty, Brichet, Stian Paulsen and Mikel Azcona rounding off the top 10. Cruz has dropped behind Borkovic. I mentioned a moment ago, I thought I saw Danny Cruz running wide, and indeed Dusan Borkovic has dived up the inside as Loris Cencetti comes into the pits. And on my timing screen, I can see that there is an incident under investigation between Mikel Azcona and Loris Cencetti. Now, was that the incident at the race start? So then the leading positions at the moment. Jean Calvinet in the Audi RS3 LMS leads from Danny Nage in the Hyundai i30N. Josh Files in the Honda Civic Type R. Chris Rickard in another Hyundai. Attila Tashi in a Honda. Stefano Comini in a Honda. Then Maxime Potti in that Volkswagen. Julien Brichet in the Peugeot. Stian Paulsen in the Cupra ahead of the similar car of Mikel Azcona. That's your top 10 at the moment. Through the chicane then. Turns 16, 17 and 18. Bringing the cars out onto the start-finish straight. And indeed there is confirmation that that incident between cars 25 and 14 is under investigation. 25, as I mentioned, is Mikel Azcona. 14 is Loris Cenchetti. And Azcona, our championship leader, currently in 10th place, and so currently in the points positions. What, if anything, will be done about that incident? Cenchetti still in the pits. Satyen Tirakul now on his outlap, so he's back out. As Jean Calvinet and Danny Nage are going head-to-head. Danny Nage tries to go up the inside, takes out the tyre stack, forcing Jean Calvinet to run wide. This battle is still ongoing. Danny Nage has the line. He last of the late breakers and takes the lead. Danny Nage sneaks ahead of Jean Calvinet, who indeed comes straight back at him. Nage, though, has the line for the left-hander. Josh Files still third, but the lead has changed hands on lap 5. Danny Nage picked his moment, dived up the inside of Jean Calvinet, and this is the moment. Jean Calvinet slides over the curbs, and Danny Nage also takes out the tyre stack. So the gap between third and fourth has also come down. Files fending off the attentions of Chris Rickard. And again, Nage has the line. Files now moves from defence to attack. Down the start-finish straight then. The start of lap 6. Venet moves across to defend from Files, taking a fraction of the pressure off Danny Nage. But look at this. Centimetres between the pair. And into the second right-hander at turn 4 between this, before this long left-hander at turn 5. Julien Brichet has also dropped down while we were looking at the battle for the lead. Brichet has now dropped to 11th, elevating Paulsen and Borkovic to 8th and 9th respectively. Azcona still 10th, and no further action, we're being told, between that incident between Azcona and Cenchetti, who is still in the pits. So Danny Nage, will things really shake up in terms of the Drivers' Championship if Danny Nage can hang on? We're something like halfway through this sprint race here at Assen. We're watching the battle for third. Chris Rickard from Switzerland attacking Josh Files from the United Kingdom. Hyundai versus Honda. Ahead of the pair, the scrap between Danny Nage and Jean Calvinet goes on for the lead. 0.2 of a second is the gap between the pair. Through the chicane then. And then turn 18, which spits the cars out onto the start-finish straight. Little flash of the lights from Rickard just to unsettle Josh Files as Attila Tashi attacks and has a look up the inside, but no, indeed, not quite close enough. So Rickard caught in the Honda sandwich. Files ahead, Tashi behind. Tashi also has Comini to worry about in 6th place. Oh, is that contact? Is that a little nudge between the pair? I think it may just have been the camera angle. Oh, Josh Files, what are you doing? Josh cuts the corner, holds up Tashi and allows Comini to dash through. So not only does Josh Files lose 3rd place to Chris Rickard, but he also allows Comini to go past himself and Tashi. Completely misjudged that corner. Cut it too deeply, just touched the gravel. And that dragged him in. And Comini said, thank you very much, I'll take that as well, thank you. So a complete change then. Watch this again, and it's this next corner where there was a nudge, there was a slight tap from Chris Rickard, which just assisted Josh. And Josh then spat out of the gravel right in front of Attila Tashi to hold up his teammate as well. The unintended consequence is that Stefano Comini's gone past the pair, and Comini now closes the gap on Chris Rickard. And indeed, Files indicates to allow his teammate to go through. So disappointment for Josh, what was an almost certain podium finish. As Comini now closes up. He tries to dive up, and it's now a drag for the line. Comini, though, is just held up by Chris Rickard, who moves across. Tashi's involved in it as well as Comini moves across. Hard on the brakes is Tashi. And Chris Rickard runs wide. Rejoins, though, ahead of Comini, and back through goes Files. Hopefully we can see that little sequence again in replay in a moment. So Files once again ahead of Tashi. Maxime Potti's closed up behind them. Potti now in 7th. So while the lead hasn't changed hands, Josh Files does the same again. Just tucks in behind Tashi, but has to time it so he doesn't also let Maxime Potti through. And has he? Potti goes through. Files didn't quite work that one to the full advantage and took to the curbs and just allowed Maxime Potti through. That was a sporting gesture by Josh to let his teammate through, but it backfired on him because he's now got Maxime Potti between himself and Attila Tashi. Danny Cruz gets a warning for track limits, as does Comini. Track limits at turn 15. Potti pulling away from Josh Files. And at the same time, Danny Nage is pulling away from Jean-Carl Venet. The gap now between first and second has gone up to just over a second, a fraction over a second. Chris Rickard now 3.3 seconds behind Venet in third. Then it's Comini, 2/10, nearly 3/10 behind. Then Tashi, then Potti, then Files, then Borkovic, then Paulsen, and then Mikael Azkanar rounding off the top 10. Rhys Barr has also passed Danny Cruz for 12th, but outside the points. Hyundai is Stefano Comini's target. Can Comini get onto the podium here at Assen? Through the first of the chicanes we go. It's turn 6. Looking again at the scrap between Files now and Borkovic. So Files, having gone from a podium position, is now scrapping for 7th. And a yellow flag at turn 6. Now what's happened there? That's the battle for the lead. We've almost been ignoring that because the fights for positions further back have been so intense. But look at this. Josh Files has dropped back a long way and is now scrapping for 7th with Borkovic. But Venet is coming back at Nage. 3/10 now. The gap was a second a couple of laps ago. And another warning for track limits. Davidovsky this time, so that's not one that'll concern our race leaders. So Nage slowly but surely falling back into the clutches of Jean-Carl Venet. And Venet now within touching distance of the Hyundai. So has Venet backed off to preserve his tyres? He was just over a second behind Nage. The gap now officially 3/10. I think it's a lot closer than that as Venet dives out to the side. The pair side by side, hard on the brakes. You can see there the body damage on Nage's car. I suspect from the contact with the tyre stack earlier on. But Venet chose his moment and chose poorly, I think. Not quite getting that move to stick. Nage keeping his nerve. And the clock steadily ticking down. 5.5 minutes plus 1 lap of this 9th round of TCR Europe still remaining. The top 10 at the moment. There is our race leader, Danny Nage, in the 999 Hyundai. Jean-Carl Venet, there he is in the Audi RS3, second. Third is Chris Richard. Fourth is Stefano Comini. Fifth, Attila Tashi. Sixth is Maxime Potti. Seventh, but coming under threat, is Josh Files. Dusan Borkovic is eighth. Stian Paulsen is ninth. Mikael Athkanar, our championship leader, is 10th. But that position will change. Remember, just a point between Athkanar and Borkovic. And Borkovic currently 2 places ahead of Athkanar. And indeed, Borkovic, there he is, has passed Josh Files. So Borkovic has moved up into 7th. Files drops to 8th. Paulsen is 9th. Athkanar is 10th. And then behind the point scoring positions, there is Paulsen. Julien Brichet is 11th. Rhys Barr 12th. Danny Cruz is 13th. And then we've hardly mentioned Jens Renaud Muller, who's moved up to 14th. Francisco Abreu is 15th. Stefanovski is 16th. Davidovski is 17th. Giovanni Altoe in one of the 2 DSG cars is 18th. And I was going to talk about Peter Terting. He is in the pits in the Hyundai. And I suspect that's pretty much the last we'll see of Peter Terting in this race. Oh, and that was Athkanar in the background, having run wide across the runoff area. Did he outbrake himself? So Athkanar was behind Paulsen. There he is. I think he just ran wide, but found. I suspect in the 3.5 minutes plus this race remaining, will be more than capable of snatching 8th place away from Josh Files. Now tomorrow, Paulsen will start race 2 from pole. So the one thing he doesn't want is damage. Oh, big sideways move from Josh Files. I know he likes oversteer on the car, but that's just too much. Paulsen gets up alongside. There's contact between the pair as they go through the chicane, side by side onto the start-finish straight. This is tremendous racing. Mikael Athkanar moves up too. Athkanar now behind Files. Files has the line for the right-hander at turn 1. Files will hold the position. Oh, just. Paulsen, though, moves ahead. Athkanar attacks as well. He tries to go up the inside, cuts the corner. And will the race director be looking at the track limits? Just as Athkanar went through. Now, several drivers have been warned for track limits. As Stian Paulsen went round the outside of Josh Files. Athkanar too claims the position. So, all change at the bottom of the top 10. Paulsen now is 8th. Athkanar is 9th. And Josh Files drops to 10th. And behind you just saw the target competition Hyundai of Rhys Barr. Let's look at that again. Big sideways from Josh Files. And whenever I ask him about his setup, he always says how much he likes oversteer. But there's oversteer and there's oversteer. And that was the moment that allowed Stian Paulsen to close up. And then it was that drag race down the start-finish straight that saw Paulsen power past the Honda. Now, Athkanar, despite what it says on your timing screen, is actually in 9th position. Borkovic is 7th, so the lead in the Drivers' Championship will change hands after this race if things stay as they are. Through goes Naj, Venet, Richard, then Comini, the gap opening up between third and fourth. Tashi, Potty, Borkovic. And the gap between Borkovic and Potty less than half a second. So this will make things interesting. If things stay as they are, Danny Naj, currently in third position in the Drivers' Championship, will take the maximum points for the win. Borkovic at the moment is 7th, fighting for 6th, and Athkanar up into 9th. And the screen's now corrected itself. The gap between first and second, incidentally, has opened up once again, now just over a second. And then similar gaps between third and fourth. Chris Richard, 1.5 seconds behind Venet in third. Comini, 1.5 seconds behind Richard in fourth. 8/10 then to Attila Tashi. And then it's this battle. Potty, a second just over behind Tashi. Borkovic, 49 hundredths behind Potty. That was the official margin as they last crossed the timing line. And Comini now dropping back into the clutches of Attila Tashi. Through the chicane for the penultimate time. And so Danny Naj starts the final lap. And the gap having opened up even more, 1.2 seconds now from Naj to Venet. As that car we're looking at, 62, the Hyundai of Dusan Borkovic, as he goes past Potty. Borkovic takes 6th place, as he also receives a final warning for track limits at turn 8. But Borkovic moves up yet another position to 6th. Athkanar 9th, and Danny Naj will take the 25 points for first place. So then, positions going into this final lap. Danny Naj, a 1.2 second lead over Jean-Carl Venet. Then Chris Richard in third place. 4th is that man Stefano Comini. 5th is Attila Tashi, and the gap has closed to just 0.4 of a second. Maxime Potty has dropped behind Dusan Borkovic, so Borkovic is now 6th, Potty 7th, Paulsen is 8th, Athkanar is 9th, and Josh Files is rounding off the top 10 as things currently stand. So there is Venet, 2nd place. There is our race leader, Danny Naj. Coming through then towards the chicane for the final time. Danny Naj will take the win. Comes through 16 and 17 around the slight right-hander onto the start-finish straight. He takes the checkered flag, and it's Danny Naj who takes the 25 points. Jean-Carl Venet 2nd. Chris Richard 3rd. A delighted Stefano Comini, judging by the headlight flashing, holds on to 4th, ahead of Attila Tashi, Dusan Borkovic, Maxime Potty, Stian Paulsen, Mikael Athkanar, and Josh Files. There he is, just ahead of Rhys Barr. Files hanging on to 10th place. He will be bitterly disappointed with that, after it looked for so long as though Files would be 3rd, possibly 2nd. So, what does that mean? I do my sums. So Dusan Borkovic will move ahead of Mikael Athkanar. Danny Naj, though, moves up to 114 points. So what's that? Something like 10 or 11 points behind Dusan Borkovic now, with, of course, tomorrow's 10th round of the series to come. So things have tightened up considerably in the battle for the Drivers' Championship. And that's just the result that Danny Naj will want. Jens Renaud Muller and Julien Brichet, an incident under investigation, but the pair outside the top 10, outside the points, confirmation too of the 3 non-finishers. Munkong Satyen Tirakul, 3 laps down Peter Turting, and Loris Cenchetti, the first to retire. So 19 finishers, 3 non-finishers. And Giovanni Altoe it is who wins the DSG trophy, finishing ahead of Marie Bo Coppens. Altoe in the Audi and Bo Coppens in the Cupra. But Danny Nagy will be absolutely delighted. The 2 podium finishes in Hungary, followed by race victory here at Assen. And in fact, the perfect progression. 3rd in race 1 in Hungary, 2nd in race 2, and now 1st in race 1 here at Assen. Jean Calvinet is already in the pit lane, parked up just behind the number 2 board, and there behind you see Chris Richard and I think one of the Hondas, possibly Tashi, just coming around. But there, though, is our race winner. Danny Nagy comes through. So Mira Racing will be absolutely delighted with that. Chris Richard is already in position. We're just waiting for Danny Nagy to be waved through. Oh, not the time to move those tyres. So 30-year-old Danny Nagy will come through, and he will be absolutely delighted with that result. Very much elevating him back into the scrap for the driver's crown. Off come the belts. The net at the door already gone. And up on top of the car, there's the picture you'll see on the websites and on the social media coverage later on. And you can see the broad smiles from the Mira guys. Big hugs from Danny. What job well done, guys. There is David Barry with the sunglasses, the team manager. He will be delighted. Remember, this comes after Francisco Mora's victory in Hungary, the 1-2 for the team. And so the consistency of that Hyundai and the team coming into its own now. Just 5 races remaining, remember. 1 more here at Assen, and then a pair at Monza and a pair at Barcelona to round off the season. Romano, the official photographer, getting the guys to celebrate. So, come on then, Danny. Helmet off. Big hugs again from David. And our man, Alfredo Filippone, is down in pit lane. He'll be heading for a chat with Danny to see, daft question I suppose, how's he feeling? But there is confirmation of race 1 here at Assen. The winner, Danny Nagy from Hungary in the Hyundai, ahead of Jean Calvinet and Chris Richard, with Stefano Camini, Attila Tashi, Dusan Borkovic, Maxime Potti, Stian Paulsen, Mikael Azcona, and Josh Files occupying the rest of the point-scoring positions. Outside the top 10, it's Rhys Barr, Danny Cruz, Jens Renaud Müller, Julien Brichet, Francisco Abreu, Igor Stefanovski, Viktor Davidovski, Giovanni Altoe, Maribo Coppens, and then it's Munkong Satyen Tirakul, Turbo, ahead of Peter Turting and Loris Cenchetti. Those 3 classed as non-finishers. So that was race 1 at Assen. Race 2 is tomorrow at lunchtime. There is Danny Nagy. And there, very briefly, you saw Alfredo getting wired for sound. We'll have a quick chat with our race winner very shortly, just before the podium ceremony.
Daniel Nagy, first win in the TCR Europe in front of this huge crowd. You must be happy.
Yes, I'm really happy. We started this weekend very hard. We were struggling some mechanical problems, but my wonderful team solved all. And in the quali it was very tough, but fortunately we managed to be on P4, and then I had a very good start. I was just concentrating to get ahead, but Vernet was very, very fast, and he was also a very experienced guy, so it was really tough, but I must say it was a very fair race. I really enjoy, and I really don't know what to say, because this is my first international win. I really wanted at that point of the championship, so I feel really great.
Well done, big fight, and now back at the top of the championship, in the top positions for the championship.
I am leading the championship?
No, not yet.
Okay, because it would be a surprise. Yes, now it's time to start a little bit thinking about the championship, but more concentrate on the step-by-step results.
Good, well done, enjoy.
Do you know, Alfredo, I think he is going to enjoy. These are some of the highlights of race 1 from Assen. Delighted Danny Nage, and I can reveal that just before coming out I saw Danny and his physio, his trainer, warming up by juggling, which I'd not seen before, tucked away around the back of the team truck. Danny was juggling to get his hand-eye coordination in, and whatever he's doing it right. Chris Richard from Switzerland, target competition Hyundai, in 3rd position. Jean Calvinet, Leopard WRT, Lukoil, Audi in 2nd. But our race winner, Mira Racing Hyundai from Hungary. Look at that. Don't trip over the champagne, Danny. Danny Nage, our race winner. And in his honour, the Hungarian national anthem will follow shortly. So the Hungarian national anthem, played to commemorate a very important victory, a day that Danny Nage will remember for a long, long time. Yves Baclen presents the winner's trophy to Danny Nage. Look how much that means to him, the huge smile. Mauro from Yokohama presenting Jean Calvinet with 2nd place. Congratulations also for Giovanni Altoe there, who's the winner of the DSG award. And Paolo, the TCR Europe promoter, presents Chris Richard with 3rd place. And of course, no second race today, which means that they potentially can spray the champagne properly. Winning team's trophy goes to Mira. So there is Giovanni Altoe's DSG trophy. So pictures have been taken. The young ladies on the podium probably wish that they'd taken the hint and disappeared slightly earlier, as Yves Baclen also presents the leading finisher in TCR Benelux Trophy to Jean Carvenet. As the next attraction for the crowds heads out onto the track. So, photographs please, gentlemen and ladies. And so next it will be the champagne spraying before we do it all again tomorrow for round 10 of the 2018 TCR Europe Series. This is where the ladies get out the way. Giovanni very sensibly heading out of the way as well. So then we leave you with a recap of the race results from round 9 of TCR Europe 2018. Danny Nage is our race winner. Jean Carvenet second, Chris Richard in third. And a reminder that at lunchtime tomorrow we will be back here at Assen for race 2, round number 10 of the 2018 TCR Europe season. Thanks for your company today. We'll see you tomorrow on whatever social media platform or broadcaster you're watching us on. Goodbye.
louder. Kenny? Jack Aitken, the first demonstration of this weekend in the Renault. How did it went for you?
Yeah, good. I had some fun going some fast laps, which we don't usually get to do in this car, so it's a nice change. And then at the end, just doing some donuts and having some fun. But it looks like everybody enjoyed it, so yeah, it was really good.
And what do you think of this circuit?
Yeah, it's really nice. I drove it in Formula Renault many years ago, and it's got a really nice fast flow to it, so you can really go from one corner to the other, and it's a nice feeling, and it has some technical sections as well, but it's really nice.
And do you see Formula One coming here someday? Does the track suit Formula One?
I think so, yeah. I don't see any reason why not. I mean, it's more for F1 to decide, but the track is wide enough, I think, and there's lots of runoff, which is always good for Formula One. And like I say, the track is quite fast and flowing, so it will suit the current generation of car quite well.
Obviously, you're normally a Formula 2 driver. What's the difference between driving a Formula 2 car and a Formula 1 car?
Mostly the difference is just that everything is much more paying attention to details, and you really feel that from the driver's position, in the sense that Formula 2 is fast, and Formula 1, to make the difference in speed,